All right. The, before we get to the sex, before we get to Stormy Daniels, and we do have to talk about this because it really, what it really is it's the failure. It's the failure of the media to get Trump with their phony Russian collusion thing. That Russian collusion story is blowing up on them, and suddenly the FBI looks really, really bad, and it looks really corrupt. And it means the Obama administration. It's not the FBI, obviously. It's only the leadership of the FBI, which was put in place, and the DOJ, which was put in place by Obama. So he's beginning to look corrupt. So they've got to find something else. They're scrambling. Well, we got a girl he slept with. He slept with a woman. Donald Trump slept with a woman. You did not. I mean, oh my God. So it's like we're supposed to all run around in circles about this. But I want to just say we're going to talk about the March Against Guns with Knowles, but I want to just point something out. The New York Times, a former newspaper, had an article an editorial attacking a proposed Ohio bill which would ban abortions. And obviously the point of the bill is to go to the Supreme Court and get Roe v. Wade overturned. And so the New York Times starts screaming about this, saying, well, abortion is the law of the land. And it says bills like the Ohio total abortion ban seem outrageous because they are. But if there's any lesson to learn from them, it's that the Republican anti-abortion strategy doesn't stop with one extreme bill. If it's up to them, they won't stop until it's impossible for many or all women in America to kill their children. They don't say that, but that's what they mean. So basically, you have the New York Times making the same argument about abortion that we on the right are making about the Second Amendment. Those kids out there saying, we don't want to take all the guns, but then you look around and you see a lot of signs saying repeal the Second Amendment, get rid of all guns, ban guns. They don't know what they're talking about. They all just want to ban guns because somehow that's the thing that gets them on television. That's the thing that is making their lives so exciting. That's where their emotions have been guided by their teachers and the media around them. But it's interesting that it's the same argument. It is interesting that we are both saying this is the law of the land. You can't just ban guns if you want to. You have to obey the Constitution. The New York Times is saying you have to obey what 5 judges said the Constitution says, but we're all making the same argument. And the point is that the argument is between people who believe that we are the leaders of the country. We, the people, are the leaders of the country. And because government tends by nature to expand and take over everything, and has been expanding since really the turn of the century, has been expanding through these regulatory agencies and all the ways that has reached into our lives. I mean, the last president of the United States wanted to force Catholic nuns to pay for birth control, and some of the birth control may have caused abortions. They wanted to force religious people to break their religion according to the law. They basically said to Catholic nuns, you cannot have an adoption service. They said to the Catholic Church, you can't have an adoption service if you don't place children with gay couples. So you have to violate your principles. You have to violate your religious beliefs. I mean, this is how far the government has now extended. It has extended into every aspect of your life, and they wonder why we want guns. I mean, the whole thing about government is all guns. That is what constitutes the government. That's what makes the government the government. What makes the government the government is it can shoot you legally. That is what makes the government the government. If you don't pay your taxes, they put you in jail. But if you don't want to go to jail, they come and arrest you. What if you don't want to let them arrest you? They have the guns, and they can use them. And it's legal for them to use them, and no one gets punished for them. That is why the founders wanted us to have the guns. Their argument is that that baby is not a person. Now, if you committed a murder and the police went in and found your DNA, they would know it was you because only you have that DNA. That baby is the only person who has that DNA. So when you eradicate it, you are killing, it seems to me, another person. It may not be a fully developed person, but it is a person. So that's the argument we're having. These are the two sides. And it really does matter. It really does matter. I mean, it matters. It's not like I don't want to get along. It's not like I enjoy having a country that's so angry and so much in opposition. But we are arguing about some serious stuff here. And I think that, we're going to have this argument. Meanwhile, what's the news covering? Covering a porn star. Covering a porn star. CBS got something like 20 million viewers to tune in to watch this porn star talk about the fact that she slept with Donald Trump before he was president of the United States. This is happening because the Russian collusion story is falling apart. Not only is the House Intelligence Committee mopping up its investigation, everything is pointing to dishonesty at the top of the FBI and the DOJ, not in the working not in the places where the guys do the actual work, but in the leadership that was put in place by Obama. Andrew McCabe's firing. Andrew McCabe wrote a piece. Remember, he was the deputy director, fired not by Donald Trump, fired because an internal investigation, the Inspector General, DOJ Inspector General's investigation, turned up that he had lied under oath, or lacked candor, they said, under oath, about a story he leaked to the press. And that went to the FBI's Internal Affairs Division, and Jeff Sessions fired Andrew McCabe. And it did not cost him his pension, as they kept reporting. That's not true, although it may cost him some money. He wrote a piece, McCabe wrote a piece saying, well, did he lie? No, he said, at worst, I was not clear in my responses, and because of what was going on around me, I may well have been confused and distracted, and for that, I take full responsibility. But that's just what Mike Flynn said. Remember, Mike Flynn, the National Security Advisor, was tossed out of office because the FBI accused him of lying, and he has confessed to admitted guilt to lying to the FBI about conversations he had with Russian diplomats. And he said it was confusing. It was during the transition period. It was all legal. It was legal for him to do it. He was just convicted or pled guilty to lying about it. It's not that it was illegal to do it. He just didn't get his story right to the FBI. So McCabe is being treated much, much better than Michael Flynn. Michael Flynn was thrown out, had to leave his post as National Security Advisor. His life has basically been ruined for nothing, as far as I can tell. He's been truly mistreated by the Mueller investigation. He was replaced by H.R. McMaster, who never, was a good man, but he and Trump never saw eye to eye. Now he's gone, and John Bolton is taking his place. So it's really interesting. And of course, they keep saying this is chaos in the White House, but that's not chaos. Basically there was a conspiracy by the DOJ, FBI, and Mueller to get rid of Michael Flynn, to nail him in a way that was really unfair. And now they've gotten around to appointing John Bolton. Let's go to Knucklehead Road for the New York Times calm, rational take about this.
Oh, hey, hey, oh, hey, oh. Let's go waltzing down to Knucklehead Road.
The New York Times editorial is, yes, John Bolton really is that dangerous. There are few people more likely than Mr. Bolton is to lead the country into war. How is the National Security Advisor going to lead the country into war? His selection is a decision that is as alarming as any Mr. Trump has made. His selection, along with the nomination of the hardline CIA Director Mike Pompeo as Secretary of State, shows the degree to which Mr. Trump is indulging his worst nationalistic instincts. What are they worried about? Well, before we go to that, let's look at Tim Kaine. I want you to remember, Tim Kaine was the vice presidential candidate with Hillary Clinton, right? A woman who, well, let's hear what he said. This is full Joe McCarthy stuff. Remember, Joe McCarthy used to come out and say, Mr. Chairman, I have in my hand the names of communists in the State Department. And you'd never get to see the list. Here's Tim Kaine on John Bolton.
Reports surfaced right after he was named about a speech that he gave in Russia in 2013 at the request of a Russian oligarch who's very close to Vladimir Putin. These kinds of contacts with foreign governments, especially in the words of General Dunford, who's the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Russia is the chief nation-state adversary of the United States. These kinds of contacts raise real questions in my mind about whether he could get a full security clearance or not. We've already lost one national security advisor, Michael Flynn, because he was lying about contacts with foreign governments and had to be let go. I think even though the Senate doesn't get a vote to confirm the national security advisor, I have many, many questions, not only about John Bolton's philosophy, but about these contacts with Russia and potentially other governments.
Sleazy peasy from the vice presidential candidate of the presidential candidate whose husband was taking $500,000 to make speeches in Russia. And then Mrs. Clinton then arranged or helped Russia get clearance to purchase some of our uranium supplies. I mean, what is he talking about? He's talking about John Bolton made a speech in Russia. Now that's a problem. That makes him an enemy of the state. And he says he can't get a security clearance. Know how you get a security clearance? The President of the United States says you have a security clearance, then you have a security clearance. I mean, he's talking absolute trash. And this is why we're watching Stormy Daniels. It is because everything they do keeps blowing up in their face. They got Mike Flynn, and what did they get instead? They got John Bolton, the man they hate and fear more than anybody else. Why? Because John Bolton says we have to stand up to North Korea, and the Iran deal was a mistake. Now, Bolton is being very cagey about what he'll say because he said, well, that's all in the past, and I can't really talk about what I'll say to the president. But we've got, Bolton has never been shy about expressing his opinions. So let's just listen for a minute. Remember back when Trump had to certify the Iran deal, they asked Bolton if he should certify the Iran deal. Here was his response, cut 10.
To the real question, which is this a good deal for the United States or not? If it's not a good deal, we should get out of it. And that's what he said during the campaign. That's what he should do. I'm not aware of any major agreement the United States has internationally, not treaties, not executive agreements, not anything that has a legislative companion comparable to the Corker-Cardin bill that requires this certification process. And I have to say, the Corker-Cardin bill was a mistake from the get-go, and this whole debate over certification is one more pernicious effect of it. I just repeal the whole thing. I don't care really whether he certifies or not. It's better to decertify, but it's not enough if you don't get out of the deal. And you ask yourself, how logically can the president say this deal is not in America's national interest, but by gosh, I'm going to stay in it?
This is what the New York Times is worried about. They say this deal has stopped the Iranians from making nuclear weapons. You want to bet? I mean, this is the thing. Everything they say when they say this is going to start a war, they're not thinking about the fact that 10 years down the line, they're going to have nuclear weapons, and then what? Then we're just helpless. That's kind of what they're looking for. I don't think that that's what they're looking for. I think they're just cowards. They're just cowards, and they hate the sound of men standing up to bad guys. They just hate that noise that it makes, because they're little girls running around throwing their skirts over their faces. They just hate the sound of a guy like John Bolton, who's just telling the truth. We all know it. We all know we have to stand up to North Korea. We all know we can't let the guy just sit there, that madman, sit there building nuclear weapons. So what is the problem? It's dangerous? Yeah, it is dangerous. It's dangerous to stand up to these guys. But the real point is simply this. Everything we're watching is this ceaseless attempt to create a narrative about Donald Trump that somehow he is unfit to serve as president of the United States, that your vote shouldn't matter, your vote should be turned around, the vote should be nullified because they know so much more than you do. And that is why we're listening to a porn star. That's why we're listening to a porn star talk about her creepy little, get-together with a guy. It's like, because it's all they've got. This Russian thing is falling apart. They got Mike Flynn, and now instead they have John Bolton, the guy they fear more than anybody else in the world. The only victory that they have scored recently is this omnibus bill.